And then I'm going to stop this share so we can sort of, talk a little bit. I did want to make sure that that share was on the opening for the video. So how has your week been?
I would say my week was busy. It's always like that.
Did you have a chance to do anything with USAJOBS?
No, not really. Because I already mentioned I'm full-time student and I'm an international student, and I'm not allowed to work here.
Okay.
But actually, I'm on my way to receive my green card. So as soon as I receive my green card, I will start looking for some internship.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, I can get like as an international student, I can get some internship, but it's a little bit hard. So I'm just looking for my green card.
Very good. As you're doing that, one thing I might suggest, and Chris and I sort of talk about this a fair bit. Not all experience is, yes, you're hired. Here's how much I'm going to pay you. It's got to be full time. You can get experience through non-traditional means like volunteer work. When we put out a few weeks ago about helping to manage the CS-Sensei Facebook page and our email list, Douglas said, sure, I'll do that. So now he's going to be able to claim that he has helped administer the cybersecurity, mentorship group, 2 different channels. So it's just one more thing to add to your resume. A lot of people think that volunteer work is worthless, and that is totally incorrect. My very first IT job that I got way back in, long time ago, part of the reason they selected me and I was able to qualify is that I had been a computer user group president for the last year and a half or so, whatever it was. And I claimed that as my experience. Yeah, do you know IT? Yes, I do. I'm a computer users group president. So that was all volunteer. Had nothing, I mean, it wasn't even an operating system that you would use in a work environment, but I claimed it. I was actually an Commodore Amiga users group president. Like, who's going to use an Amiga in a business setting? But it worked. So that's the important thing is yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. So what's the best way to find something like that? I mean, some like voluntary job like in IT field, as you...
yeah, my suggestion, hold on just a second. Okay, sorry guys. So my suggestion is to find wherever you are now, your homeowners association, your church that you go to, any clubs you're with, your school. They may have volunteer opportunities through the school or something like that where you can help out with the IT department at the school. All of those are places where the same requirements exist. They've got to make sure it's secure. They've got to make sure that it won't be compromised or taken over, but they have limited budgets, so they're not going to staff up a whole group of people to do it. So they may look for volunteers. So I would say begin where you are currently and look around and say, where is IT in this? And who can I talk to see if they're interested in me as a volunteer? Sometimes you won't, how do I say this? You won't find people who are like super enthusiastic all the time because some people will say it's going to take me longer to train you than it's going to take me just to do it all by myself. Those are what I would call the martyrs of IT. The people who say, nah, I'll just do it myself. Well, that's fine until that person leaves, and then the organization suffers greatly as a result of it. So I never recommend that you do things like that. I always recommend within IT, everything be based on standards and practices, not on super people. Because what happens if they get promoted? What happens if they get sick? You know, everything comes to a grinding halt. So what's been your experience, Chris, in that area?
Ooh. I'm 2 years into my IT journey.
Mm-hmm. Well,
IT
I mean,
cyber,
maybe not
yeah.
IT, but you know, any job. Any job.
Oh, any job. Okay. A lot of the, and I guess we're going with volunteer experience, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A lot of it can be found through your local community organizations.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've used is Volunteer Match. Volunteer Match is a website that goes into your local city, and a lot of it's web development, but web development is a great start into the cyber realm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My start was actually through a technician group that was rebuilding computers or refurbishing computers for DC school children in Africa. And the guy used to work for Microsoft a long time ago. His passion, his pride through his church community was, I want to take computers that are certified disposed, meaning that they've gone through all the scrubbing, all that, pull the memories and the hard drives out, buy parts that will make them go back up, light them back up again and deploy them, and then he'll give them to low-income residents of DC and school children in Africa.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And that was the one that my hiring person said, if you can do that for free, what other things can you do for our organization?
Right. There's something else that I've begun down here in Arizona since we moved down a year and a half ago. I went over to my homeowners association because this is a development of like 500 some odd homes. And I went over to the HOA office and I said, I'd like to volunteer to do computer support around the complex and for free. And, you know, she was like, what? I said, yeah, I want to volunteer. It's my way of giving back. I've got skills that some of these people may not have. So let me try and help them out. And if it doesn't work, then yeah, they can go to Geek Squad or whoever and pay for it. But I'll give it a shot and save everybody money and keep my experience levels up. So I've been doing that, and I've had, I don't know, 20 or so support calls, and it's been everything from getting an iPhone to update to, I had one yesterday. I'm still working on it, but it was a Windows 10 box, and when you press the button, the login screen pops up for a fraction of a second, and then it goes back to the splash screen. I still haven't figured that one out, but you can't get to the login screen because you press any key or click the mouse or whatever, and it's like there and gone, there and gone, there and gone. So you can't get to the login anymore. I'm still working on that. And I've tried making sure that it's not a stuck mouse button, make sure that it's not a stuck key. I've sprayed off the keyboard with, compressed air and all that sort of thing. But it allows me to experiment on them and keep my skills current at the same time I'm supporting them, and I can say, I've done this for this many people. I've performed IT support. Everybody wins. You know, it's the realization begins when you understand that you have more skills than you think you do. You know, there are things that you can do that many people around you can't. So what I do is I offer to share that with them. You know, just a thought. Volunteer work is not at all second class. You know, the work is truly IT, and it's truly helpful. So there are some ideas. Does that help maybe a little?
Yeah, yeah, it helps a lot actually. And like Chris mentioned, like so, yeah, yeah, I will try it. Like voluntary match, that's a good idea. So I can just put like something regarding IT field or anything regarding IT field.
Right.
Yeah, it does help a lot. Yeah, I mean, as long as I get, as you already said, as long as I get some chance, like to do some kind of work, like so, even if like IT technical support, yeah, would be perfect. Yeah. So,
Another suggestion I'll provide, if you look around the meetup.com, meetup.com is another one, look for things called user groups. Scotty mentioned user groups. I have an interest in DevOps, development operations. It's a combination of doing development and security operations or IT operations. There's a DevOps group in my locality that meets every last Thursday of the month, and they show you how to work with Linux, how to work with CI, or a continuous integration, configuration management kind of topics. And they also show you like maybe Docker or Jenkins and all that. But there are also Linux user groups. There's also ServiceNow user groups. If you go like very specific and say user group and search those on Google and Meetup, you'll find out that there are communities out there that specifically specify their skill, and you'll meet other like-minded individuals who are, let's say Linux, for example, or Mint, for example. But let's say there's a Mint users group out there, and you found that group, and they're open to having anybody there, new, old, or veteran. You can join those user groups and call those your voluntary time, but also be more involved with it as well.
Yeah. It might amaze you where you can get your experience. You just have to start looking around and saying, where can I apply myself? You know, good ideas, Chris. Thank you. Okay. Anything else we want to cover before we go? Oh, you saw the article that I submitted this week where the CyberSecurity subcommittee in the U.S. Senate or something, whoever that was, said they were really surprised that there haven't been as many cyber attacks as they thought that there would be by this point in the war between Russia and the Ukraine. And they said that they're expecting more. So when you think about it, all of the stuff we talked about for preparedness and stuff, I hope you all took my suggestion and went out and filled your tanks and bought your toilet paper now and, you know, all those things. You know, get one of those little sipper straws or whatever, just so that you can feel a little more prepared in case something does happen. Nerman, you may know more about this than we do in America. We wake up in the morning and we expect our electricity. We expect our furnaces to work. We expect our water to be filtered and safe. You know, we expect when we dial 911 that somebody's going to show up within a minute or two, those sorts of things. In America, we are really spoiled on the amount of services that are delivered very consistently. You get upset when your cable blinks, you know, in America, but that's not the case everywhere. Have you experienced stuff like that in your former country?
Well, yeah, I mean, my family and I, we went through like, I guess like 4 3 or 4 different wars. You probably remember the war between Serbia and Bosnia, Serbia and Croatia, Serbia and Kosovo, Serbia and the United States. So yeah, I mean, I would say like yeah, we have a lot of experience, and I remember for instance like the time when the US was bombing Belgrade in 1999. So I spent like 2 months in basement. Yeah, so I guess yeah, I know a little bit more.
Yeah. So and I'll speak personally, one of the reasons why I tend to lean toward being more prepared is that of everybody in this group, I'm possibly the only one that somebody has flown an airplane into my office building because I was in the Pentagon on 9/11. You know, so stuff like that happens, and people are like, oh, so surprised, and yet, yeah, the indicators were that something was going to happen, and you know, so maybe we don't need to be as surprised as what occurs all the time. There are a lot of people that they get upset when their line closes in the shopping center. What? I've got to move over to register 4? How atrocious! Be prepared, be flexible, be able to respond to things like that, because a lot of people won't. You know?
I mean, those things can happen very quickly, like overnight.
Right.
People are not aware of that. Yeah. Especially here, like because I mean, this is a very powerful country, powerful military, and people think like but I mean, pandemic is a good example, like so.
Sure.
Yeah, when pandemic hit this country, it was terrible. I remember when everything was shut down, for instance.
Right.
So yeah, and I was thinking like, what if a war happened here, like so. It will be really bad. So yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. Like so, I guess everyone should be prepared all the time. So,
or at least, at the very least, be thinking about it. When 9/11 occurred, you may or may not have been part of it or remembered it or whatever, but in the entire D.C. metropolitan area, everybody's cell phone stopped working. Why? Because everyone was hammering the towers simultaneously. And those big monstrous towers that can handle, 2,000 connections at the same time, all of a sudden had 20,000 people trying to hit them.
Yep. I remember
and it stopped.
I was calling my mom. My mom was living here, actually, and I was trying to reach my mom because I didn't want... I mean, my mom, she was living in Chicago, but I still was thinking, like, because I don't know what's going on. I was thinking maybe something will happen in other cities, and I was trying to call my mom for like 2 days, and I couldn't reach her.
Right. Oh, this is something else that I've never shared, or I don't believe I've shared, but you remember there was a time lag between the time the first plane hit the first tower, the second plane hit the second tower, and the third plane hit the Pentagon. There was a period of like an hour or something between those. What a lot of people don't realize, you understand what I mean when I say denial of service, right? That's what happens when everybody tries to hit the wireless repeater, whatever you want to call it, the thing up there, the cellular tower, all at the same time. Nobody gets in. Well, the same thing happened in my office in the Pentagon when the first plane hit the first tower, because everyone, we're in a great big monstrous building. People didn't have radios or anything like that. They had the internet. So everybody started to hit, what's going on with the latest news. And so the Pentagon at that time was, I think they say that the full Pentagon will hold 23,000 people. Well, imagine, 20,000 of them hitting their browser trying to go to news. Nobody got through. you'd say, what's going on? And your browser would sit and spin and spin and spin and spin and spin and spin. You wouldn't get news because 20,000 people were asking, what's up? So it was our own little homemade denial of service. Everybody tries to get to it, so nobody gets to it. And that's the format of a denial of service attack, or a distributed denial of service. DDoS. In this case, it was unintentional. It was not malicious, but it was just as effective. So, yeah, our own homemade DDoS. We did it to ourselves. But it was a case of what's happening? What's going on? I don't know. Nobody can get on the internet, and then all of a sudden you feel something on the side of the building. And what do you know? It's time to leave. So now you're standing out in the parking lot going, nothing's happening. What's going on? I don't know, etc. And I may have shared this before, but when we were out in the South Pentagon parking lot, we heard a boom that sort of sounded like it may have been coming from Washington, D.C., across the Potomac River. And so here we are all out in the South parking lot. Nobody's phone worked, trying to guess at what had just occurred. And when you have 10,000 people in a parking lot, you have lots of ideas. Somebody said, oh, there was a car bomb at the State Department. Maybe somebody blew up the Pentagon or blew up the White House or whatever. You didn't know, so you're making things up. Well, I found out later on what had occurred was, if you remember during the activities that occurred with that, there is an air defense role for a number of bases around the U.S., and they keep fighters on alert so they can jump in their aircraft and take off at a moment's notice. Well, they had scrambled the aircraft down in Norfolk to fly up to D.C., and the issue is they weren't going to get there in time. So the guys at the FAA said, I don't care. And these are the words they said. I don't care how many windows you break. Get up there now. Because in the United States, you're not allowed to go supersonic over populated areas because you break windows. And the guy said, I don't care. Get up there. So these two jets went and firewalled it and took off coming up north. But as a result, there was this big boom in Washington, D.C. when they approached the area. And we were like, something blew up, because most of us hadn't heard a sonic boom in 30 or 40 or 50 years, myself included. I grew up in Southern California, and they used to test jets down there, and we would hear lots of sonic booms and say, oh, yeah, it's a sonic boom. But standing in the Pentagon parking lot, we're saying, it's a car bomb. Same sonic boom. So you guess, and that's a terrible thing. Hey, Chris, can you take over for a second? I got to run. I'll be back in a second.
Any topics, other topics you guys want to talk about? That was a great story by Scotty. One of the things that Scotty does want to talk about today is going more detailed into job searching. And I don't have the screen share capability on my side yet, so we'll talk more about that in a few moments. But feel free to, if you have questions, bring them out.
So, Chris, like if I try to like get some internship like in like using USAJOBS, like is that possible? Like if I just like type in like for internship, like.
It's possible. I think my concern, Nerman, is you brought up a topic about your status as a citizen. Don't be shocked if you see on the application forms, U.S. citizen only. So that
yeah, for those federal jobs, especially for like it's only like U.S. citizen, not even with the green card. I know. Yeah, it's so hard, and most of those jobs, like they're asking for internship, they're asking like for experience.
Even
Yeah.
for internship, that's interesting.
Oh yeah. Like in IT field, like I tried. I mean, I applied for many internships, like in Chicago, around Chicago, and most of them, when I apply, I see they're asking like for, and they're asking actually they are asking for a lot. And I was like thinking like like if I have this experience, I would not ask you for internship. I would ask you for like job position.
There's 3 levels of experience that a friend of mine has talked about one time, and there's something like I heard Windows 11 before. And then there's the second level of, hey, yes, I know Windows 11, and I've typed in on Windows 11. I know how to go into the command line part of it. I know how to go into the PowerShell part of it. I know how to install applications. I know how to configure it. I use that in my everyday wherever I work at or wherever I go to school. And then there's the third part of experience with you probably get to Scotty level or my level sometimes, and you can teach somebody about Windows 11. So experience is vague on purpose. If you know what Windows 11 is, and just take skill X, it doesn't have to be Windows 11. It could be like Linux. It can be networking. And you see that word, hey, experience in networking or computer networks, put that on your resume and say that's a skill and I have experience in it. And then let them be the bad guy.
Right.
And you can sit there, you know your skills and you know what you know. Put that on your resume as part of that plugin and say, hey, I have experience in this. And then when they come to ask the question, well, what's your experience? You can be honest and say, I know Windows 11 because I played with it on my computer, or I can ping my own router at home. When they go ask for professional experience, if that's what they're looking for, yeah, that's what they were looking for. But don't let yourself be the bad guy. Let the employers be the bad guy here.
Yeah, Chris makes a very good point on this. When I counsel people about filling out their resume, I use a phrase that says, if you've done it once, you've done it. That is experience. You don't have to sit and evaluate yourself and say, well, I've only done this a couple times, but I've done this 100 times, so this one goes first. No, if they're looking for this skill, put it first. Even if you've only done it once, arrange your resume so that your viewer will be happiest. And again, if you've done it once, you've done it. It takes the interview to figure out the depth of your experience compared to their expectations. But you need to get that interview. So, yeah, very good, Chris. Okay, I think we've got about 30 minutes worth of stuff for our slides. Anybody have anything before we go to the slides and we'll start looking at USAJOBS? Okay, excellent, good. When you go into USAJOBS, you can do what are called saved searches. I hope you guys have had an opportunity to go in and take a look at it, but you can do what are called saved searches. And you can say, I want to have this thing retrieved every day, every week, every month, and sent to you in email. You'll literally get a link or an email that contains a short description of the top 10 of what you're looking for, and then a link to the entire search. So that's always good to do. I would say daily and weekly are the best ones to do. Daily can get real busy, but when you're starting off, it's important to look at everything and then try and filter out the things that don't interest you, rather than start with a tight filter search and only get a few things, but overlook other things that maybe opportunities you might think about. So I always recommend start broad and then focus down. Instead of, I'm looking for, a cybersecurity specialist who wears a blue shirt. Don't get that specific, because you'll miss stuff that would have worked for you. But anyway, there are what are called saved searches, and USAJOBS will do the work for you. By the way, I did find out that Monster still manages USAJOBS for the federal government. It is monster.com. So anyway, some of the suggested filters. These are the 3 filters that you always should consider during your searches. Number 1, 2210. 2210 is the job series for IT management. That handles everyone, from interns to all the way up to, in some cases, CIOs. So 2210 is everybody who does IT in the federal government. Then you can also use your search term of cybersecurity. The challenge with using cybersecurity as a search term is there are groups or agencies or teams that now say cybersecurity. The most frequent is CISA, Cybersecurity and Information Security Agency. The federal government has something called cybersecurity. So if you search for cybersecurity, you may get a secretary job showing up as cybersecurity. That's because it's a secretary at the cybersecurity agency. So just be aware of that. Cybersecurity doesn't always mean a cyber job. And then the last one is Infosec. That is short for information security. And the reason it's important that you look at that shortening is a number of years ago, gosh, 10, 12, maybe 20 years ago, IT management was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so they decided to use these little breakout phrases to describe what area of IT they were looking for. So you'll see, for example, the top one says 2210 IT management, and then there will be a phrase after it in parentheses. And some of those phrases are, in this case, Infosec, which is information security. Another one is ENTARCH, E-N-T-A-R-C-H, enterprise architecture. Then there's one that says networks. Then there's one that says C-U-S-T-S-U-P-T, customer support. So as you're looking for these jobs, you might find 2210s that, oh, and another one is app dev, application developer, etc. So as you're looking at it, a 2210 might or might not be exactly what you're looking for. But you can sharpen it down to, for example, Infosec, if you're just looking for IT, information security, or cybersecurity jobs. Okay? Any questions as we're talking about that? These are the 3 terms you need to have in all of your job search filters.
Just to dovetail on Scotty, that 2210 catches all the different terms you see besides Infosec.
Yep.
Another one that's being hot right now is enterprise architecture, or ENT-ARC.
Yep. Very true. And just my suggestion, if you have a choice of 2 different positions to go into, and one is, for example, network security, and another one is enterprise network security, if you think about it, an enterprise is an internet of internets. In other words, it's a whole bunch of little networks that are all put into this great big monstrous framework, and everything has to work according to the framework expectations, not just the domain. Enterprise experience is one step short of what nowadays they call cloud experience. Cloud experience is really helpful because a lot of hirers are looking to outsource certain of their services. For example, let's say I want to have web access and or data storage, but I don't want to put it into a data center. I don't want to pay for spinning disks. Well, you can go out and hire Amazon and get Amazon Web Services, where they can provide web front end and data storage and all those sorts of things. You just hire them. That's called cloud services. The other thing, if you're in an enterprise, you have to manage the interface between your enterprise and the cloud services. So the bigger you get, the more complex you get. So if you have your choice of jobs and you're really interested in getting the most complex ones, watch for enterprise and second, cloud. Okay, just some thoughts there. So here's something that I pulled up. These are all literally from this morning. Remember I said that the terms aren't always consistent. You can't rely on them. If you look at the top one, it says IT cybersecurity specialist. Hey, they had the cybersecurity word, but then it also says Infosec. All right, well, that's kind of cool. And it's at Homeland Security, the CISA. So that would have been caught in a cybersecurity search. It would have been caught in an Infosec search, and it doesn't show the number, but because it says cybersecurity specialist for Homeland Security, it may not show up on a 2210 search because Homeland Security started to make 2220, 2230, 2240. They've devised their own numbers. So it may or may not have shown up. But look at the second one. That one says IT specialist. It doesn't say cybersecurity, but it's at the same place in Homeland Security, but this one says Infosec. So IT specialist would have been a 2210, but Infosec would have been caught in your search criteria. Now, if you look at it, those look like almost the same job. They're not, but they could be. And then the last one says supervisory IT specialist. You have to demonstrate skill in managing people and performing in teams as a team lead or something like that. But you notice it's also at CISA. It also says Infosec. In fact, all three of these say Infosec, whether it said cybersecurity or not. And in this case, all three are at the CISA. So vary your search terms. You may miss something if you're relying on a single search to get everything that might work for you. Try multiple searches. And the broader you go, the better to start with, until you start getting rid of things like, no, I don't want, secretaries at CISA. No, I don't want to be a janitor at CISA, because it shows up in your cybersecurity when you use a cybersecurity filter term. So first get the big group and then filter it down. If I was looking at today's vacancies, and the criteria on the top one said I'm looking for 2210s open to the public. And it said there were 344 jobs. Now, remember I said that Homeland Security, which is the CISA, they're calling theirs 2220, 2230, 2240, whatever. They wouldn't have shown up here. However, if I look down at the one that says cybersecurity, shows 136 jobs, it might have shown up there instead of the one at the top. And then Infosec, open to the public, 600 jobs. Now, if you think about those numbers, they seem a little different. Never rely on the consistency of the HR group that's putting these into USAJOBS, because they're hand entering them. So the sky's the limit. When I got I'll give you an example. When I got hired into this position I'm in, it was advertised out of Chicago. The recruiter that spoke to me, the HR specialist that spoke to me, sat in an office in Chicago. And I got hired in Washington, D.C. So, you know, try and find out first. Don't disqualify something simply because it doesn't quite look right. Let them tell you no before you disqualify yourself. Here's just an example. I did 2210s and then 2210s open to the public, 2 different searches. And 53% of the searches that I did were available to the public. 53% of the job vacancies today were available to the public. So just something to think about. Now, here's another thing that literally raises that percentage. Very frequently, somebody puts a job vacancy out under what's called open to the public, and then the same job vacancy under what's called merit promotion or status candidates. This is for people who are already in civil service. This is for people who are not yet in civil service. All right, so it could be the same job, 2 vacancy announcements. It looks like 2 vacancies here. One is open to the public, one is status candidates. So it may be the same job. So I remember telling you guys this, when I would put in for a position, I would apply under open to the public. Even though I was a status candidate, I would apply under open to the public. Oh, no, I wasn't a status candidate, but I was a veteran. So open to the public and veterans were the 2 lists that I would always apply for, even if it was the same job, because I wanted to be, when they put out 2 vacancy announcements, they're going to get 2 lists of qualified candidates. And you want to be on both. You want to be on both. Because let's say somebody really wants you, but you're number 6 here and you're number 600 here. If they really want you, they're going to look down the list and find your name and say, okay, this is the list we're going to go with. They do that. They're allowed to do that. They're trying to be as objective as they can, but you know, sometimes they shoot for a particular candidate. I've seen it happen. So make sure that you apply in as many different ways as you possibly can for a position. And recognize that the same position may be advertised 2 or even more times. Even though it looks like 2 vacancies, it's really 1. Also, on some of these announcements, they say several or they say many, and this may only show up as 1. It is 1 vacancy announcement, but they may have 20 positions within it. So these numbers are not hard numbers. I guess that's a way of saying it. Also, I wanted to share about temporary positions. I have never been hired into one, but I have watched a number of them go by. So I'm going to give you my impression of a temporary position. When somebody opens something up, let's say it's a project, let's say they're doing a Windows 11 migration or something like that, they may hire people for that particular job or for that particular contract or for that particular presidential initiative. There could be a lot of those. And when they say it is not to exceed, in this case, 2 years, they really mean it. That position has funding for 2 years, and that's it. So when you see something like this, the important thing to remember is, number 1, it will get you in the door, and then number 2, once you get in, it's probably a good idea to look for another permanent position as a status candidate, because now you're in civil service. But yes, these positions where they say not to exceed 2 years, unless they convert that position, the funding for that position will expire at the end of 2 years, and they're going to have to let you go. All right? So what you do is you use that as a stepstone to get in and then look for another position. That's my suggestion. There's nothing wrong with temporary just so long as you realize you're not going to be doing it forever. Use it to your advantage. When you are looking at the USA Job search results, you can sort by a number of things. Probably when you're first looking at your search, it's best to filter by closing date, because some of them may require you to immediately respond, like today is the closing date or tomorrow is the closing date. And you want to hop on that, get your application in before midnight tonight. And by the way, just one last, really weird thing, it's midnight their time, not midnight your time. So if they say it closes at midnight, it's midnight where the HR is. Be aware of that. So you could be on the West Coast thinking, oh, I still have 3 hours. And the vacancy just closed because it's on the East Coast. So always be ahead of that. Always be ahead. But if it's going to take a scramble, sorting by close date will show you the ones that will require your immediate attention. I almost never try and search based on an agency, even less so a department, because when I'm looking for a job, I'm not saying I want an FAA job, or I want a job with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, or I want a job with the U.S. Forest Service, or the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I don't care. I just want an IT job, So when you're looking at it, I don't sort by agency or department unless there's something very specific near me. I'll give an example. I was living in Waldorf, Maryland, which is southern Maryland, and we had 2 military entities there in southern Maryland. One was what was called the, it was a naval air station down on the coast of Maryland. I forget, Patuxent River Naval Air Station. And the other one was a Navy armaments testing place, but that place, it was called Indian Head, Maryland, very small place, but they had IT specialists. And it was a 10-mile drive or bike ride from where I lived. So I kept saying, if I could get a job in Indian Head, I could ride my bike to work if I wanted to. And that was what was going through my mind. It was like, I don't care if it's going to be a job that's going to grow me. Maybe it's a job that I don't even have to drive to. I can get my daily exercise in riding a bike to and from there. Or, maybe get a motorcycle instead of a car or something like that. Save money. So be thinking about that. If you're looking for a specific agency or department or location, and I'll tell you about locations in a second, but agency or department, that only works if you're looking for something very specific. Like me, I was looking for an IT job at the Indian Head Naval Weapons Facility because it was close, really close. Now, locations. Locations are tricky. I shared this last week. Somebody could put out that it's just in this state. They could put out that it's nationwide. And you would think, silly you would think that if it says nationwide and you have a filter search for, I don't know, Washington, D.C., that Washington, D.C. is included within the nation, so it's going to show up in the nationwide. That's not the case. If somebody puts a vacancy out and it says nationwide, you will only see it if you put in nationwide in your location search criteria, or have no search criteria at all for location. So start big and then go down from there. Look for nationwide, see what you find. Then go down to your state, see what you find. Then go down to your county, see what you find. Then go down to a geographic area like Baltimore City has their own location. Then there's Baltimore County, in which is located Baltimore City. So if you're looking for a job in Baltimore, check them both. Okay, the same thing may occur in Chicago, may occur in Washington, D.C., may occur in, any major metropolitan area. It may filter down to numerous locations that do not cover each other. It's whatever the HR puts into that field, and you've got to match that. Okay, so be very, very careful. Alexandria, Arlington County, Northern Virginia, nationwide, all could be literally next door to each other. So you have to use that various search criteria. One other thing you can do is say, I want to search within 25 miles of my house, or 30 miles, or 50 miles, or 10 miles from my house. And they'll search based on your zip code. That's another great one. I want to see what's near me. And start there. Try a number of different approaches. I would almost never look for salary or job title. When they do a salary, they do the lowest possible salary and the highest possible salary, and those are not firm. So I would just say, search for the different skill levels, like a GS9. GS9 is considered to be fully qualified. And so maybe you want something that's entry level. It may say it's a GS7, maybe. It may say it's a GS5. I've seen vacancy announcements that go down and say starting at $0. What they mean is it's going to be everything, anything. They don't even put in a salary level. Your main focus should be in trying to find those job vacancies without worrying about salary for your first pass. Okay, just a thought on that. Now, it's important if you're using USAJOBS to put a current resume up on USAJOBS and then make it searchable. There are recruiters that do search out on USAJOBS for people that they want to contact and then invite them to apply. They'll invite you to apply. They'll notify you that there's a vacancy and say, you might take a look, here's a link. Why? Because you met their search criteria and they were looking for employees and your resume was searchable. Your profile can also be searchable. But if you're coming in from the public, that may not be as big a deal as your resume. So put a resume out there, update it frequently. I'd say, minimum once per year, and make sure that it's available in case somebody swings by in the dead of night and they want an entry-level cybersecurity intern at the facility you didn't even know existed in your town. Those sorts of things do occur. And one last thing on this, only one resume can be searchable at a time. I have 3 resumes up there, and mainly the reason is that one's really old and I use it to go back and say, what were the times I was employed here or whatever, because that's what I put out there 5, 10 years ago, so I can say, oh yeah, that's right, and refer to it in my latest resume. Keep your resumes up there. Just deselect the box that says it's searchable. And again, you can only make one resume searchable at a time. Only certain resume formats are searchable. Some PDFs, when you save your document to a PDF, won't be a text text-based PDF. The way to find out about that is to click on it and see if it highlights words or phrases or if it highlights the whole page. If it highlights the page, it is probably not text searchable. And you don't want to put that up there because it won't be searchable by the recruiters. Okay? And it's only up there for 18 months at a time until you refresh it. Any questions? Any questions so far? We're on our last couple minutes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So should we like create like resume based like on job position that we are looking currently? Because I have also a couple of those resumes, and I put like all my kind of like experience, like places where I used to work, and they're like not related to IT field. So should I change that? Should I just create like resume like based like on IT field?
Excuse me. The short answer is you should put everything in that you believe the recruiter is going to look for. I had somebody whose resume I was reviewing for them, and their resume was like 7 pages long. And I said, nobody's going to read this. It doesn't matter what you did in elementary school. You know? So make it as compact as possible. A 1 or a 2 page resume does not mean you didn't do very much, but it does mean that your work was not as broad as someone else's. That doesn't mean it's bad. But again, experience doesn't always translate into skill. So you sort of have to look at that each and every time. Also, remember we talked about volunteering to do stuff. If you are in a current job and it doesn't do IT, see if you can find a way to make it to where it does IT. Oh yeah, I help to do backups for all of the electronic records for my company. And I established a backup and restore profile, offsite storage, etc. Guess what? That's business continuity, which is part of IT. Just because you help them do backup tapes for their books. See what I'm saying? You work your way in, and then you can say, I did IT during this. Now, my main job was as a sales clerk, but I did IT as well. I'll give an example. I was a phone answerer for CompUSA in 1992 and 93. But while I was there answering phones, it was customer support, somebody at my local CompUSA came up with a sales initiative that allowed Fannie Mae employees to buy computer equipment just by calling in and saying, this is my employee number, and I want this, 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 and this. And CompUSA would process it all and ship it to them, and then they would, you know, it was some sort of a loan through Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae offered this to all their employees. But me, being a phone answering person, guess what? They were going to call in. So during that 2-week period, I set a corporate sales record for CompUSA. I sold $1.2 million in computer systems to homeowners in a 2-week period. I set a sales record for CompUSA, and I was the phone answering guy. You know, so you've got to make yourself available for these things so that they end up being what you can put into your resume. See what I'm saying? Look for those opportunities. Okay, so I hear my clock saying it's time to go. Plan for inconsistency. Don't expect them to all look the same because they won't. They're written by different people. Change your search filters. Don't expect the same filters are going to work all the time. Try something new. Change your criteria. Try ad hoc searches. Every once in a while, go out and say, I want to look up security, and see what happens. See what you get. And then again, check back frequently because somebody may have placed something up there that has a 1-week turnaround, and you won't know about it until it's too late. So check back. You may be surprised. And here's just the final mindset you need to think about. If you're a salesperson, let's say you worked at, I don't know, Macy's, and you worked at the perfume counter. You're going to have 100 people walk past you, say, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. Oh, I think that's stupid, or no, I'm allergic, or whatever. But then you're going to get that one person who's going to say, oh, okay, I'll buy it. And then you're going to get another person and another person. You can only get hired at one vacancy. So you're going to go through many before you hit that one. Just expect that and don't be discouraged. You've got to adopt a sales mindset. I'm going to have 99 no's before I have that one yes. And expect it. Any questions? That's all I had for you guys today. Anything come to mind? Anything? Cool. By the way, hi Harminder. I saw you drop in. Good to have you, man.
Hi, thank you very much. Thanks. How are you doing, Gavin? Good. I'm listening. So thanks.
Okay,
thanks.
good. Glad to hear that.
Yes,
Chris, did you have anything for the team before we sign off?
Nothing much. It's the job searching here is U.S. government. It's probably going to be a little bit different in the private sector. I have not break into the private sector. I've only been watching videos on how to job hunt in the private sector. But I think the best advice I could give you is don't be too overwhelmed with your job hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it to 8 hours as much as possible if you're hunting. And make sure you know you have a family, get some sleep, drink and eat, and treat it like any normal work day.
Yeah. 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 And we'll talk about interview techniques and stuff at some point. But I think the main thing to leave you with is that you are the commodity in this. There are more vacancies than there are people to fill them. So don't walk in and say, I need a job. You don't need to. You can approach them from an objective, mature standpoint, and they will do the same with you. Okay? All right, that's all I got, guys. I really appreciate it, and hope everybody got something out of this today. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Guys, bye.
Yes,
Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks.